You're too basic for a boyfriend, but good to keep as a friend. My ex told me before dumping me for her artistic freedom. I smirked and left. 2 months later, she's homeless, broke, and under a restraining order begging for another chance. Hey, Reddit. So I guess you could say I learned the hard way that some people don't want love. They just want free labor and attention. My ex dumped me for being too basic, then tried to keep me around like her personal handyman/wallet. What happened after that turned into the most unexpectedly satisfying chapter of my life. Buckle up, it's a wild one. If you ever want to see what pure ego looks like wearing thrift store earrings and paint-stained jeans, date a self-proclaimed artist. That's Claudia, my ex. 9 months of my life gone to someone who thought hanging up string lights counted as interior design, and that every minor inconvenience was the universe testing her creativity. She worked part-time at a cafe, spent the rest of her time pretending to work on a novel, and called it her creative journey. I fix machines for a living. Real work, with grease, noise, deadlines, and people who actually pay you. She said my job was cute once. Cute. Like I was running a lemonade stand instead of keeping her washing machine running and our rent paid. At first, I thought the artsy stuff was interesting. She was passionate, always talking about energy and expression. But after a while, I realized she didn't actually finish anything. Every project was a concept. Every failure was someone else's fault. And she looked down on anyone who wasn't living a bohemian lifestyle, which basically meant she could fail at things without being judged. Lately, she'd been acting weird, colder, distant. You know that gut feeling you get when someone's building up to a speech? That was her. Fewer texts, more snark. Every time I came home from the shop, she'd be on the couch scrolling through art blogs, sighing dramatically like she was trapped in a life she didn't sign up for. That night, a Tuesday, because dramatic people love doing serious stuff on boring days, she finally snapped into performance mode. She waited until I sat down, then put her phone away and looked at me with that fake deep stare. The one she used when she wanted to sound like a poet instead of a person. Thomas, she said, like she was addressing a child. I've been thinking a lot about us. Uh-oh, the famous opener. She started pacing, talking about how she needed to grow, how our relationship felt stale, and how she wanted to feel passion again. I swear, she used more buzzwords than a motivational poster. Then came the line she must have practiced in the mirror 100 times. You're too basic for me. I need someone with passion and depth, but we could still be friends. She paused like she just dropped the greatest plot twist in cinematic history. And before I could even blink, she doubled down with, "You're too basic for a boyfriend, but good to keep as a friend." I had to bite the inside of my cheek not to laugh. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like getting demoted to friend was a promotion in the Claudia universe. See, what she didn't realize was I'd seen this coming. The fake existential sighs, the "I just need space to create" crap. I knew she was going to pull this stunt. I just didn't expect her to sound like a self-help podcast while doing it. She waited for me to say something, probably expected tears or a dramatic, "I can change." Instead, I leaned back on the couch, nodded slowly and said, "Absolutely." Her face dropped like I'd just spoiled her ending. "Wait, what?" she said. "Yeah," I said. "Friends." "Sounds great." Her eyebrows pulled together. "That's it?" "Pretty much," I said. "You're the one with passion and depth, right? You should probably go explore that." She blinked like she couldn't compute it. She'd built this whole breakup up in her head. The crying, the begging, the emotional closure. Instead, I gave her nothing. No fight, no lecture. Just silence and the faint sound of her ego deflating. Then I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and started pulling my stuff from the dresser. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, following me. "Packing," I said. "You wanted to focus on your art, right? I'm just giving you the space to do that." Her tone shifted fast. Confusion, then panic, then anger. "You can't just leave. We have an apartment." "You have an apartment," I corrected. "Lease is under your name, remember? You said it made you feel independent." She froze. That detail hadn't aged well. "But you can't just move out," she said, like there was a rule against it. "I think I can," I said, folding shirts calmly. "You're the creative one. Create a new roommate." She looked at me like she couldn't tell if I was serious. That's when I realized something. She genuinely thought I'd stay. She'd planned this whole breakup to keep me as her emotional and financial support system, just without the relationship part. She thought she'd break up upwards. When she realized I wasn't arguing, her voice softened, that fake sweet tone she used when she wanted to manipulate. "Thomas, come on, don't be petty. We can still hang out, still talk." "Sure," I said, zipping my bag. But just to be clear, friends don't split rent, fix cars, or buy groceries for each other. That was a relationship thing. Her jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. I looked around at the half-decorated apartment. Half mine, half hers, all pretentious. I thought about the rent she paid for independence and the electricity bill I covered every month she forgot. Nah, I said. I'm just being basic. Then I grabbed my keys and walked out. Good thing I'd already lined up a month-to-month studio a few blocks away. I'd seen this breakup coming weeks ago. As I walked to my truck, I could practically feel the silence behind me. That awkward, heavy air that follows someone who finally realized they overplayed their hand. Claudia wanted freedom, independence, a life of passion and depth. I was happy to let her have all of it. Every single inch. Turns out, silence hurts people like Claudia more than any insult ever could. The next morning, my phone was already buzzing before I even finished brushing my teeth. She probably expected me to come crawling back, holding flowers and begging for another chance to be in her personal art school drama. Instead, I was loading the last of my boxes into my truck, sipping coffee, feeling lighter than I had in months. My new apartment wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No candles that smelled like sadness. No glitter in the sink. No one sighing because I used a regular mug instead of a hand-thrown artisan vessel. The next day, the voicemail started piling up again. Same script, different tone. You're being unfair. You just left me with everything. You're overreacting, Thomas. Can we please talk? No, we could not. I didn't respond. Not once. That silence started driving her nuts. Then came the next phase, the random errands phase. She texted me asking if I'd seen her charger, her mail, her extra blanket. Classic bait. Then she said the landlord needed my info for lease paperwork, which was hilarious since the lease was under her name. Independence, remember? That weekend, I was on the balcony tinkering with a small part I brought home. The heavy stuff stays at the shop. Then I heard a knock at the door. My stomach immediately said, uh-oh, and I was right. Claudia stood there, sunglasses on indoors, looking like a mix of rage and fake calm. And next to her was Becky, her best friend, the human foghorn. Becky had this expression like she was about to serve justice on behalf of womankind. Claudia just looked tired and angry, which honestly wasn't new. Thomas, Claudia started, crossing her arms. We need to talk. No, you need to talk, I said, leaning on the doorframe. I'm good. Becky jumped in, all attitude. She's been crying for days, you know. You just walked out without closure. Closure? I repeated. You mean me listening to another 20-minute speech about passion and depth? Claudia scoffed. You're still being immature. I'm trying to have a mature conversation, but you're acting like a child. Becky made a disgusted noise. Wow, so this is the real you? She said you were controlling. I raised an eyebrow. Controlling? Yeah, I remember the time I forced her to pay half the rent. Total dictatorship. Claudia shot Becky a look like don't ruin the plan. Then she turned on the guilt. You just walked out, Thomas. No warning. You left me with everything. Maybe next time, I said. Don't schedule your breakup like a press release. Becky scoffed again. She just wants peace? I smiled. Then maybe she should stop starting wars. She tried one more tactic. The soft voice. The manipulative, I'm just being reasonable voice. We could still be friends. You don't have to be so cold. I tilted my head. Friends split bills, right? She frowned. What? No, friends don't. Exactly, I said, smiling. Becky's jaw dropped. Claudia looked stunned. I was done. I stepped back and nodded toward the hallway. Ladies, this conversation's been enlightening, but I've got some fixing waiting, and it's less complicated than this. Becky huffed, muttered something about toxic masculinity, and stomped off. Claudia followed, still fuming. She stopped halfway down the hall, turned around, and shouted, You'll regret this, Thomases. Doubt it, I said, closing the door. The moment that door shut, the peace came back like a wave. Just silence, the good kind. The kind where you can actually hear your own thoughts again. People like Claudia don't really want independence. They want control disguised as freedom. Once you stop playing along, they lose the power. They lose you. I leaned back, watching the faint glow of the city outside my window. For the first time in a long time, everything felt still. No noise, no chaos, just peace. She wanted freedom. I gave it to her, and apparently she still doesn't know what to do with it. A week of silence. That's how long it took before Claudia started slipping back into her usual routine, pretending she's the victim and I'm her unpaid maintenance crew. The first call came at 9:42 p.m. I was elbow deep in an engine rebuild when my phone started lighting up. Claudia, I let it ring. It went to voicemail. 2 seconds later, another call. Then a text. The power just went out. You need to come fix it. You need to. Not can you, not please. Just a command. Like she was still the queen of my schedule. A minute later, another text. Don't ignore me, Thomas. You lived here. It's your responsibility. Yeah, because apparently the breaker box listens to me better than her. I wiped the grease off my hands, looked at my phone, and turned it face down on the workbench. Not my circus anymore. I got back to work, finishing up the job, music playing low in the background. I didn't check my phone again until the next morning. 5 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and 1 dramatic text. You're heartless. I could have been electrocuted. I just muttered, maybe next time aim for the outlet, and went about my day. A few days later, she tried again. I don't have money for groceries this week. You should help since you know how expensive it is here. Right, because apparently post-breakup alimony is part of friendship now. I read it, sighed, and went back to work on a carburetor. Then came another round of calls. My faucet's leaking. You at least owe me that much. Come fix it. Ignored. A day later, a voice note. My car's making this weird noise, and you're the mechanic. Be a man for once and come fix it. I played the first 2 seconds, heard her tone, and just deleted it. She didn't want help. She wanted control. That's what it had always been about. I realized then she didn't actually miss me. She missed the convenience of me. So, I did the most mature thing I could think of. Muted her everywhere. Calls still came through if I happened to be looking at the phone, but the notifications were gone, and I didn't have to see her name pop up. No notifications, no more middle-of-the-night drama about light bulbs or destiny or whatever else she thought was broken that week. Just silence. It drove her nuts. When you ignore someone like Claudia, it's like taking away their oxygen. I could almost picture her pacing around, phone in hand, rehearsing new ways to get my attention. She'd probably even write it off as performance art. Meanwhile, I was doing great. Business was steady. I was sleeping better. Eating actual meals instead of surviving on stress. I even started chatting with this girl, Riley, who worked at the cafe near my shop. I wasn't trying to date her. I was just enjoying being around someone who didn't suck the energy out of the room. Apparently, that alone was enough to send Claudia into orbit. It started with a text from an unknown number. Wow, already moving on? Didn't take a genius to guess who it was. She probably borrowed someone's phone since I'd muted her. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another one. So this is who you are now? Replace me with some cafe girl? That one made me laugh. I hadn't even told anyone about Riley. So clearly, Claudia had been sniffing around. My guess? Rose, our neighbor, mentioned she'd seen me at the coffee shop once, and Claudia turned it into a full-blown conspiracy. Then came the voicemail, full of that manic energy I remembered all too well. You're disgusting, Thomas. I can't believe you'd move on this fast. We just broke up. You clearly never cared about me. You just wanted the first girl who'd smile at you. I hope she realizes how fake you are. She ended it with a dramatic sniff, like she'd just finished filming a sad movie. I played it twice. Not for the message, for the entertainment value. Then, I deleted it and went right back to my day. The next morning, she escalated. I got a call from a mutual friend. Apparently, Claudia was telling people I was using women to get revenge. Real cinematic stuff. That afternoon, while I was working, my phone buzzed again. This time, I picked up. Thomas's? She snapped the second I said hello. So it's true? You're dating that coffee girl? I sighed. Claudia, I'm dating my peace of mind. She's beautiful and quiet. Don't be sarcastic, she yelled. You look pathetic, jumping from one girl to another. I'm not jumping, I said. You left, I just landed somewhere better. You're such a... I hung up. And just like that, silence again. That night, I sat on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city lights flicker. The air felt light, clean. My phone was quiet for once. Claudia wanted to control everything, even after walking away. But you can't guilt someone who's already free. She wanted to keep me on standby, the reliable Thomas who'd fix her car, her sink, her ego. But that version of me had retired. Permanently. I wasn't her backup plan anymore. I was her reminder that she'd built her independence on borrowed parts. And the best part? I didn't have to say a word. My silence said everything. She could scream all she wanted, but I wasn't picking up. A week of radio silence later, I got a text from Rose one Saturday morning. Rose still lived next door to Claudia, so she got front row seats to the chaos. Your ex is throwing a new beginnings party tonight. This should be good. I actually laughed out loud. Only Claudia would celebrate a breakup like it was a career milestone. I could already picture it, her holding a wine glass she couldn't afford, surrounded by the same friends who secretly hated her, giving a speech about personal growth while forgetting to pay rent. I didn't reply to Rose's text right away. I was under a car, changing the oil on a '68 Mustang, listening to the soft hum of an actual machine that worked. By the time I finished up, my phone buzzed again. Update. It blew up. Hard. That got my attention. I grabbed my phone and called her. Rose sounded half tired, half amused. Your ex just held the most chaotic party I've ever witnessed. It was supposed to be a fresh start, right? Except half the people there showed up demanding their money back. Money? I said, raising a brow. Yeah, Rose said. Apparently, she convinced people to invest in her art projects. Promised to feature their names on some upcoming exhibit. No exhibit, no refunds. You can guess how that went. I leaned against the hood of the car, trying not to laugh. Let me guess. Someone filmed it? Oh yeah, Rose said. One guy recorded her yelling about being misunderstood, and how true artists can't be rushed. People booed her in her own apartment. Guess her independence has an invoice, I said, smirking. Rose chuckled. She kicked everyone out, and then spent half the night screaming about fake people. I could hear it through the wall. Tragic, I said. Freedom's expensive. I hung up, shaking my head. The irony was almost poetic. She dumped me because I was too basic, and now she was getting heckled by her own unpaid art patrons. I figured that would be the end of it. Nope, that disaster must have triggered her next move, the pity tour. A couple days later, I got a call from my sister, Hannah. She sounded awkward. Hey, Thomas? I got a weird message from someone named Claudia? I froze mid-bite of my sandwich. You've got to be kidding me. She said she's your ex, and she really needs to talk to you. Something about splitting bills? I rubbed my face. Unbelievable. What exactly did she say? She said you were going through a rough patch, and that if the family convinced you to move back in with her for a while, you'd both save money. I almost choked laughing. She's asking you to get me to move back in? What is this? Emotional crowdfunding? Hannah sighed. I told her I'm not getting involved. But she was really pushy. Said she's worried about you. Yeah, I said. Worried about her rent, maybe. A few hours later, my mom called, and I knew immediately where that came from. Thomas, she said, in that tone moms use when they're about to guilt trip you, why is that nice girl Claudia calling me saying you're homeless? I closed my eyes. Mom, I'm literally sitting in my apartment right now, eating takeout. I'm fine. Well, she sounded upset, she continued. She said you left her in a bad financial situation. I just don't understand why you can't at least help her until she gets back on her feet. But because she's not my responsibility, I said firmly. She dumped me, remember? I know, my mom said. But no buts, I cut in. Mom, just block her. Seriously, don't feed into it. She's not looking for help. She's looking for control. There was a pause. Then she sighed. You sound just like your father. Good, I said, hanging up. By the end of that day, I'd gotten 3 more messages. One from an old coworker, one from a cousin, and one from a mutual friend. All saying some version of, your ex reached out. She's trying to get you to call her. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was delusion. She actually thought she could guilt trip my family into getting me back under her roof. She wanted her old setup again. Me fixing her problems, paying the bills, running errands while she talked about creative breakthroughs. She didn't miss me. She missed the convenience of me. That night, I sat in my apartment scrolling through my phone. Every number she'd ever called was now blocked. Hers, her friend Becky's, even a few mutual contacts. Just her numbers, though. I didn't bother blocking her socials. If she wanted to post nonsense, I'd rather see it. I wasn't leaving any doors open. I texted my sister again. If she contacts you again, just block her. Don't even respond. Hannah replied a minute later, already did. She's insane. Then another from Rose popped up. Your ex just screamed at someone in the parking lot again. I think she's practicing for her next meltdown. I laughed to myself. She's getting good at it, I muttered. Leaning back on the couch, I realized something. Claudia wasn't the kind of person who accepted consequences. She deflected them. Every bad decision had to be someone else's fault. When she ran out of people to blame, she started recycling old ones. But this time, I wasn't playing her game. Let her call. Let her cry. Let her fake apologies to whoever would listen. She was learning, the hard way, that independence isn't about freedom. It's about standing on your own when no one's around to fix things for you. And if she thought dragging my family into it would work, she was about to find out just how basic I could be when I stopped caring. After that stunt, I didn't hear from Claudia directly for a while. Thank God. But Rose kept me updated from time to time, mostly out of pure disbelief. Claudia wasn't just crashing, she was doing it in style. A couple weeks later, I got a text from Rose that said, "You'll never guess who's living in your old apartment now." I replied, "The rats?" She sent back a laughing emoji and followed up with, "Nope, that photographer guy she used to work with when you were together." Of course. I could practically picture it. The smug guy with the beanie and camera strap around his neck, calling himself a visual storyteller. Claudia used to talk about him all the time, claiming they shared creative energy. I figured that was her polite way of saying she wanted him to admire her paintbrush collection. Anyway, now he was living with her. Rose said Claudia had been posting nonstop about their artistic collaboration, long captions about two souls creating beauty and chaos, and unfiltered connection. She even hashtagged it art couple goals. I nearly dropped my wrench laughing. She'd replaced me with a guy who literally sold moody photos of coffee cups and called them projects. For a while, I didn't think about it. But Claudia's life? It was about to take a hard left. 3 weeks later, Rose called me again. She didn't even bother with hello. "Your ex is losing it," she said. "Define losing it," I replied. "The photographer guy? Gone. He moved out last night. I saw him carrying her TV down the stairs." I leaned back in my chair, already smiling. "Wait, her TV?" "Yep, and a couple of boxes that looked suspiciously like her art supplies." She was standing in the doorway screaming that he's a thief. I laughed. "Guess passion and depth come with hidden fees." Rose snorted. "He lived rent-free for a month, drained her account, and ghosted." I think she finally met her artistic equal. That one had me laughing all day. I could picture it perfectly. Claudia standing there, barefoot and furious, realizing the guy she thought was her soulmate was just freeloading with better lighting. But karma wasn't done with her yet. A few days later, I was at the shop finishing up a tune-up for one of my regulars, Jeff, a guy who talked too much but always had something funny to share. He came in grinning, holding his phone like he had breaking news. "Dude, isn't this your ex?" he asked, showing me a post. It was Claudia's art page, a familiar painting, a big colorful mess of brushstrokes she once claimed represented the conflict between reality and perception. Except right under it were two side-by-side images. One was hers. The other was the exact same painting, uploaded 3 years earlier by another artist. I stared at it for a second, then burst out laughing. "No way." "Oh yeah," Jeff said, scrolling through the comments. Apparently she copied some small-time artist from New York. The internet caught it fast. It's all over her comment section. I leaned over the counter, reading them. "This is literally stolen. Fake artist alert. You didn't even bother to flip it. Guess the only original thing about you is the audacity." Claudia had turned off comments after a while, but it was too late. Screenshots had already spread everywhere. "Man," Jeff said, shaking his head. "That's rough." "Not really," I said, chuckling. "That's called performance art, the downfall of a fake creative." By the next day, her online presence had gone dark. Rose told me she'd deleted half her posts and made her account private. The people who used to hype her up for being authentic were now roasting her for being a fraud. Apparently, she'd even lost a few paid commissions. Folks who'd already sent deposits messaged her demanding refunds. Some threatened to take her to small claims court. Rose said she could hear Claudia arguing on the phone late at night, blaming jealous haters and toxic people trying to destroy her art career. Classic Claudia, never her fault. Meanwhile, the photographer guy had resurfaced online, posting vague captions like, "Real recognize real," and "Some people just steal because they have no soul," which, coming from the guy who stole her TV, was honestly poetic justice. I didn't reach out. Didn't need to. Watching her implode from a distance was better than any revenge plan I could have come up with. By week's end, Rose texted me one last update. She's selling her stuff online. Says she's simplifying her life. Translation, she's broke. I replied, maybe she'll finally find that depth she keeps talking about. In debt. That night, I went home, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and leaned back on my couch. My phone buzzed once, a random notification from social media. Someone had tagged me in a comment under Claudia's old post. It was a meme. It said, "When you leave a mechanic for a poet and end up with neither." I laughed so hard I almost spilled my drink. That was the thing about people like her. They talk big about growth and self-discovery, but they never actually do it. They just rebrand their failures as phases. She wanted a deep, passionate artist. What she got was a broke, manipulative leech who saw her as easy money. And the cherry on top? She got publicly exposed for the one thing she claimed to be best at: originality. I didn't need to say anything. The world handled it for me. As I shut off my phone and leaned back, I couldn't help but grin. Claudia wanted to live her truth. Well, now she was, loud, messy, and unpaid. And me? I was living mine, quiet, steady, and free. That peace lasted about 3 weeks. Then Claudia found a new hobby, desperation. It started with a single call. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me to answer. Thomas? A shaky voice said. It's me. Of course it was. I didn't say anything at first, just waited. I didn't know who else to call, she continued. I'm behind on rent. My account's overdrawn. I just need help, Thomas. Just until I find a new roommate. Her voice cracked in that fake, sincere way she used when she wanted something. The same tone she'd used to get out of paying bills. To talk me into believing in her vision. I leaned back in my chair. Claudia, we're not together. I know, she said quickly. But we're still friends, right? I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Friends don't pay each other's bills, remember? Then I hung up. I expected that to be the end of it. A mature person would take the hint, accept defeat, and move on. But Claudia? Maturity was allergic to her. A few hours later, my phone started blowing up. Texts, notifications, mentions. Claudia had taken her meltdown public. She posted this long, dramatic wall of text on Facebook. Something like, "It's so sad when you give your whole heart to someone, and they turn out to be a controlling narcissist. I'm finally speaking my truth. He left me with nothing, and even took things that were mine when he moved out." She made sure not to tag me, but everyone knew. The comments were full of people saying things like, "You're so strong," and "Stay away from toxic men." It was impressive, honestly. She'd rewritten the entire history of our relationship like she was writing a bad Netflix script. 15 minutes later, a mutual friend, Chris, DM'd me. "Dude, she's losing it on Facebook. You might want to see this before it spreads." I opened the post and read it twice just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. She was claiming I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and that I'd stolen her deposit money. Yeah, the same deposit I had covered entirely when we moved in. I took a deep breath. No anger. Just amusement. She really thought she could rewrite reality. So I did what I do best. I documented. Screenshots of every word she wrote, every timestamp, every comment. Then I went into my email and dug out receipts. Rent payments, bills, the security deposit transaction, and my text logs where she'd begged for money after we broke up. When I was done, I had a digital mountain of evidence. I messaged her once. Short and simple. "Delete that post before you make this worse." She read it immediately, then replied with exactly what I expected. "You can't threaten me anymore. You're a narcissist. Everyone sees it now. Threaten? Please?" If silence were a weapon, she'd already lost that war months ago. I didn't reply. Instead, I waited. A few hours later, she doubled down with another post, even more dramatic. This time, she said I used her financially, gaslighted her creativity, and undermined her artistic journey. She really tried to make it sound poetic, like trauma with a paintbrush. The problem was, she forgot that the internet loves receipts more than sob stories. So I gave them some. No rant, no insults, just one clean, calm comment under her post. "Lease under your name. Receipts for every bill I paid. Screenshots of you asking me for money. Keep my name out of your art." Then I attached photos, rent invoices with her name, bank transfers showing payments, and a couple of her texts begging me to help out with rent just one last time. Her followers went dead silent for a second. Then the comments started pouring in. "Wait, is this real? Girl, why'd you lie? This is embarrassing." It took less than 20 minutes for the tide to turn. The same people who were cheering her on were now clowning her. Someone even wrote, "She's plagiarizing relationships now." That one nearly made me choke on my coffee. Claudia panicked. She deleted the post, then her account. Then she reactivated it again an hour later with some vague quote about choosing peace over drama. Yeah, peace that came with screenshots. I could have left it at that, but she'd crossed a line. You don't get to accuse someone of being abusive and stealing without consequences, especially not someone as meticulous as me. So I filed a defamation claim. Nothing wild, just a clean, factual complaint with attached proof. Texts, bank statements, her original posts, the timestamps, and the fallout. My lawyer barely had to do anything. The evidence spoke for itself. Didn't even take a courtroom showdown. My lawyer sent her a cease and desist with receipts attached, and she folded fast. She had to cover my legal fees and issue a written apology. Rose texted me the same day she found out. Heard she folded fast and had to put it in writing, I sent back. Guess karma finally found her creative direction. It felt good, not because I won, but because I didn't have to lower myself to fight dirty. She tried to paint me as the villain, but she forgot. Real villains don't argue. They keep receipts. After the case, I started getting fewer calls from mutual friends, fewer mentions of her name. She was fading out, not because I silenced her, but because she finally ran out of people willing to listen. Meanwhile, I was back in the shop working on a project car, a black '69 Camaro. Something about fixing something real felt poetic in its own way. Rose dropped by with coffee one afternoon and said, "You know, she used to tell everyone you were too practical." I grinned, tightening a bolt. "Yeah, and look where impractical got her." We both laughed. The engine roared to life a minute later. Clean, strong, flawless. Funny thing about machines, they don't lie, manipulate, or play victim. You treat them right, they work. You neglect them, they break. Simple as that. Claudia had tried to turn lies into art. All she ended up painting was her own downfall. A week later, I found out what rock bottom looks like. And it had a messy bun, dark circles, and fake humility. It was a Friday evening. I'd just gotten home from the shop, hands still smelling like oil, when someone started knocking on my door. Slow, desperate knocks. Not the confident kind. The kind people make when they're out of options. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. Claudia looked wrecked. The self-proclaimed creative visionary now looked like she'd been living in a bus station. The smugness she used to wear like perfume was gone. "Thomas," she whispered, voice cracking. "Can I come in?" I didn't move. "Why?" I don't know where else to go," she said, eyes darting to the floor. "Please." She stood there shivering, holding a torn tote bag like it was a shield. I sighed, stepped aside, and let her in. Not out of sympathy, but out of curiosity. Inside, she just stood there, staring around my small, clean apartment like it was a different planet. Then came the waterworks. "I messed everything up," she said, tears welling up. "I got evicted. I owe court fees. My parents won't take me back. They said they're done supporting my lifestyle. I've been sleeping on couches for 2 weeks. I don't know what to do." She sat down at my kitchen table, head in her hands. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted people to take me seriously. I thought I could make it work, you know? Fake it until the lawsuit?" I interrupted. Her face crumbled. "Thomas, please don't do this. I'm not that person anymore." She stood up, walked closer. "I miss you, Thomas. I miss my boyfriend. I miss feeling safe. Can't we just try again?" "No," I said, plain and simple. Her eyes widened. "That's it? Just no?" "That's it," I said. "You didn't miss me, Claudia. You miss stability. You miss having someone to fix your problems while you break everything else." She turned and left without another word. A week later, I walked down to my parking spot early in the morning and saw it. My motorbike, my pride and joy, my restored triumph, had been keyed down both sides. The tires were slashed, mirrors cracked. I didn't need to guess who did it. I checked the building's security cameras anyway. The footage showed exactly what I expected. Claudia, wearing a hoodie and cheap sunglasses, crouched beside my bike with something in her hand. The timestamp? 3:42 a.m. I just stood there, shaking my head. It wasn't anger anymore, just disappointment. She'd gone from delusional to pathetic. I drove to the station later that day. The officer at the counter was filling out forms when I walked up. I filed for a restraining order. A week later, I got confirmation. The TRO was approved. She couldn't come near me, my shop, or my home. Rose texted me when she found out. "She's telling people you're haunting her dreams. Congrats, you're officially her ghost." I replied, "Best haunting I've ever done." After that, things finally went quiet for good. No more calls, no more messages, no drama bleeding into my life. Just quiet. The kind you earn, not the kind that happens when you're alone. Claudia wanted freedom. She got it. Full dose, no safety net. And me? I got peace. The real kind. The kind you don't have to post about online or prove to anyone. Engines make sense. You give them care, they run. You ignore them, they stall. People like Claudia, they never learn that part. So I stopped trying to fix what didn't want fixing, and I never looked back. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.